and I read that book after having watched the documentary.
Okay, and so we are live on Facebook. Welcome to our wonderful guests from all over the world, and today is the F Show on Decolonization. Before we start today's show, though, we would like to pay a special tribute to Zinzi Mandela, Ambassador Zinzi Mandela, who passed away on the 13th of July. She was a very good friend and comrade, and we loved her very much. And so we'd like to just share a little tribute. Justine, could you please show it? We have sincere condolences on the passing of our beloved Ambassador Zinzi. She will be greatly missed. We all loved her. May the Almighty comfort and guide her family at this trying time and grant our beloved Zinzi the highest stage in paradise. With love, Firdaus and the F Show family.
On a past offense. What freedom am I being offered to live my life as a family with my dear wife, who remains in banishment in Bradford? What freedom am I being offered when I must ask for permission to live in an urban area? What freedom am I being offered when I need a stamp in my passport? What freedom am I being offered when my very South African citizenship is not respected?
So this is Zinzi when she was a very young girl, and she was invited. It was actually not invited. She was reading the letter that her father had smuggled out of prison in response to, at the time, what the apartheid government was offering him so that he could come out of prison. And he said, what freedom is that when in fact there is no freedom of movement? So from there, we'd like to go into Siseko as we talk about decolonization. We think that the context of South Africa and what has happened, particularly during that apartheid period, we come into a new phase in South Africa. Can you share with us your thoughts?
Thank you, Firdaus, and thank you very much for the invitation, and a warm good evening to all my fellow co-panelists. So today I just want to read an excerpt from a paper that will be appearing in Third World Thematics in the coming days, and the paper is titled Resurrecting the Black Archive Through the Decolonization of Philosophy in South Africa. And so I'm just going to, as I say, read some excerpts from that. And my argument goes, while South Africa grapples with a number of discontinuities owing to the disruptions wrought by colonialism, and as queer song states, we have always been consigned to responding from the place where we ought not to have been standing, I, however, maintain that the Black Archive allows us to contextually understand what I conceptualize as epistemic harms in our context. While these harms might have been inflicted as early as the 17th century, as detailed by J.M. Coetzee in his writing, The Culture of Letters in South Africa, these particular harms do not amount to the claim of epistemicide, which would be the complete erasure and complete dismemberment of our knowledge systems. However, Ramose, however, is cognizant of the shortfalls with this claim of epistemicide when he notes it was a systemic and sustained epistemicide which failed, despite its intensity and vigor, to kill completely and totally the indigenous cultures of Africa. This is the violent context within which Socrates was transported to Africa as the omniscient teacher endowed with the highest competence in the conduct of a deadly monologue. My argument is that the claims of epistemicide in South Africa are misplaced. I am therefore interested in the development of a concept that explains this problem without running into the challenges highlighted.
Only for Siseko that we lose in Justine.
Yeah.
I think we've lost Siseko.
Above of displacement and root. For those, am I back?
Yes,
okay.
You're back. You're back.
All right. Sorry about that. So this assertion is rooted in the sense this disputing of epistemicide is rooted in the wealth of knowledge that remains untapped, I would suggest, by the historically white university. As we begin, and I would suggest that by inviting this knowledge into the contemporary university, we begin to think critically about epistemic justice as well as restitution. Epistemic restitution is annulled owing to the lack of a shared ethical intuition, a point substantiated by the lack of engagement with the Black archive in South Africa. The slack engagement with motives, which motivates claims of epistemicide and linguicide in our country. Furthermore, epistemic restitution is reduced to a non-starter by Black Indigenous scholars who shore up the notion of epistemicide. And just to finish up, resultantly, I invite my audience and the reader of this particular paper to ask the following questions. If indeed we have experienced epistemicide in the South African context, how do we begin working towards epistemic restitution? A request that underpins the decolonial tradition globally. Moreover, is epistemic restitution subsequently meant to be a form of cultural invention? These questions undergird my critique, and these questions can not only be posed in the South African context, but in any other context that has experienced epistemic injustice as well as colonialism, which is to say, how do we begin to reposition and center our knowledges in ways that are fulfilling and tend specifically to those communities and cultures that have always been at the margins because of history. Thanks for this.
Thank you, Siseko. Justine, do we have the clip from our Mandela's Africa?
Yeah.
I am the product of Africa and had long cherished dreams. The children of Africa are the most valuable treasure that Africa will ever possess. It is they who are destined to preserve the environment of our continent and keep it as a home for the people of Africa. Many parts of Africa, our children are victims of famine, disease, and man-made violence. The blight of a neo-colonialist manipulation.
You know, Africa.
Justine. Okay, and so from there we come into you, Brittany. We would like you to share with us your beautiful poem.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, I just want to open with saying how grateful I am to be in the presence of everyone. It is truly an humbling experience. And my poem is entitled, Who Am I? Who am I, being Black in America? Who am I, just an American nigger? Who am I, two-ness of two souls? Who am I? All I have is a recollection of experience, a birthplace of Texas, disconnection of appearance to those considered great in this space and time, a disconnection but direction to a savior, a divine, a white God who claims to supply my every need. So I pray for recognition, a white man to see me, dependency, then current state of mind, searching for a way out, willing to jump on an assembly, my mind asleep, blind to the truth you see, until knowledge forced me awake, realizing the dimensions within me, my roots, which held to me, connecting parts, chosen million to endure, became raised in revolution, birthing a song to explore, a Black past, one where God looked like me. Blessed understanding dawned upon me, who taught me to hate myself, brought separation to community, directed my path to white and taught Black could never mean purity, who kept unity from the hands of Black and brown, who raped the earth and colonized the ground. Sometimes I can't handle the truth of Berlin, This going back and forth, separating kingdoms to win, instability in Africa and instability abroad. Take away 99.99% of memory so we could never see what is going on, but the spirit persists. Ancestors are birthed every day to see love prevail, patiently waiting for generations to get out of this hell, finally breathe. The last shall be first, and the first shall be last. We are one. His Pan-African child, not in exile. No. Say no to mental submission. Raise your fist, Black and proud, staying down for the truth. Griots are coming back in style. Artistry for nation building, not to make capitalism smile and proud, taking risks and allowing artistry to nurture our roots so that the fruits can sprout big and grow strong. The greatest love dwells in the spirit where self develops a song, birthing freedom, decolonizing the mind. Free your soul. Take the time, African world. God wants to see us rise. Thank you.
Wow. Beautiful, beautiful. Justine, I think I forgot to have us show the Winnie clip from the film.
The whole perception of reconciliation was gotten completely wrong because it has been misinterpreted and in terms of what it was supposed to achieve. Then Winnie Mandela becomes demonized because she remains the voice of the downtrodden and the conscience of the people. That voice that says we were not treated right and we're still not being treated right. That's the reality.
I speak to you, someone loves you deeply. Love your family very deeply. I would have said to you, let us have a public meeting. And at that public meeting, for you to stand up and say things that went wrong. There are things that went wrong. I don't know why they went wrong. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for my part in what went wrong.
I was seething with rage. To this day, I ask God to forgive me for not forgiving him. He was acting there for the public, acting there for Stratcom, begging me to say I was sorry.
I beg you. Beg you.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say sorry as if I had been responsible for apartheid. I mean, how dare, really?
Thank you. Brittany, I wanted to bring that in because I think just in terms of your poem as well, that is so powerful about these powerful women who find ourselves very often on the other side. And I think in terms of decolonization and racism, just how strong your voice has to be. So thank you so much for that beautiful, beautiful poem. And then Justine, I just wanted that 20-second clip on Viola Davis.
I got the Oscar, I got the Emmy, I got the 2 Tonys. I've done Broadway, I've done off-Broadway, I've done TV, I've done film, I've done all of it. I have a career that's probably comparable to Meryl Streep, Julianne Moore, Sigourney Weaver. They all came out of Yale. They came out of Juilliard, they came out of NYU. They had the same path as me. And yet I am nowhere near them. Not as far as money, not as far as job opportunities, nowhere close to it. But I have to get on that phone and people say, you're a Black Meryl Streep.
Okay, so you see that's straight into you, Carlos, as we talk about the challenges around whether we are artists, writers, academics. Just look at that box that you have to tick. Carlos.
Yes, first of all, I wish to thank you for inviting me and putting me in such a company. And yes, it's very difficult to be Black and a woman in these American societies that we live in. From the point of view of South America, I believe it's very, very important. South America and the Caribbean is very important to for me to remember now. This one of the greatest musicians and songwriters of the world, that it's Bob Marley. When he wrote in his redemption song, he says, "Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds." Yes. And I think this is very important in our discussion on decolonization, because he puts the finger exactly where it hurts, that it's our colonization was based on slavery. And this conception, it's internalized by most of us. And then we have to see it that slavery and races are closely together, no? To create this world called America. No? And in my work as a historian, I work on the slave trade between the Guinea region, no? Where is today Guinea-Bissau, and the Amazon region of Brazil in the 18th century, when was the first time African slaves were introduced in the Portuguese Amazonia. And then from there we can see starting to reproduce, as the rest of Brazil, this double characteristics of the colonial period, that it's slavery and oppression over two major groups. One, the indigenous peoples of Brazil, that they remained, is one thing that is not very known, but they remained enslaved until 1755. Then even with the introduction of African slaves, the indigenous slavery, it remained throughout all the colonial, almost all colonial history in Brazil. And then the other is the African peoples and their descendants. In 1822, when we have our political emancipation, the decolonization, it was only in these minor matters, no? Like the political and military presence of Portugal was no longer here, but the state, the mindset remained. And then what we could see here is that racism was one of the most pervasive and everlasting feature of European colonial rule in our society. And in our society, we start to reproduce the independent society, reproduced the colonial mindset, and we have a male, white, rich elite that keeps oppressing most of the population. And today, as Bob Marley said, and even I liked Brittany's poem, because she quotes something from Frantz Fanon, that he says that we have to how colonization is inside our minds, no? And how we have to decolonize this part of ourselves. And then for now, it's what I wanted to say, and looking forward to the discussion.
Yes. So Brittany, I want to bring you in there because the poem was so powerful, but I think also in terms of your own experiences in the US. I know we've been talking about Black Lives Matter for a long time, but the issue around colonization and what has happened, can you just shed some light?
Okay. Colonization, Black Lives Matter. Media in America is used as a tool to further colonization. Specifically growing up, in my community, my household, we watched a lot of television and we didn't see Viola Davis. You know, I didn't have examples like that. My favorite actress has always been Kate Winslet. She was the reason I got into acting, and looking at people who succeeded the most, it was normally light-skinned Black people or, you know, people of European descent. So it is a real struggle to try to break your mind out of that. You can't look at mainstream media and think that you are going to become woke. You know, you have to do some real in-depth studying. I didn't break from my mental state until I went to school. So then we have to have a conversation with how are we going to educate the masses? Because the masses look at mainstream media as something to aspire to. Oh, they got this chain, they got this car, they got this house, they got this woman on their arm. That's what we're looking at. But it's just like, it has to, there's a change that has to be deeper than that, because it cannot just always be this sporadic movement of, oh, this one Black person dies, oh, this, no, it's a institutional structure, it's systematic racism, and it starts with media and hating yourself. And how do we completely reverse that and make sure that our Black Lives Matter movement is not commercialized? Make sure that it is real revolutionary thought happening in the consciousness of African people or people of African descent, and others who, I guess we can say indigenous people, who also are fighting for the right to live, you know, the right to live a holistic life, a life where we can love and nurture one another. And colonization, I mean, media has really been a tool in ingraining that self-hatred in the mind. So education is something that I believe really needs to be pushed to the masses. But how can we do that when a lot of people don't have that opportunity? So that Black Lives Matter movement can move further than sporadic episodes.
Thank you, Brittany. So Liana, we're going to talk about occupation, but before we get there, we would like to listen to the readings that you sent us. So Justine, could you please? These are 3 excerpts from Liana. So they're 3 separate excerpts.
I begin with a girl or a woman. I tell perhaps of you and I, or of women and men whom I have never met. I tell of an alley, a street, a neighborhood, or a city, or perhaps of a camp of Tell al-Za'atar, for example. Now you shake your head reproachfully again, fearful that the story will turn into political rhetoric like the slogans we've become weary of. Your eyelids bar mockingly in my face, hinting it is necessary to reassure you that what you fear will not happen. But I am compelled to begin with Tell al-Za'atar in particular, not only because of its poetic name, but for many reasons which I am under no obligation to reveal now. A deep, profound love, joyous, filled with laughter, dancing and weeping, rational, crazy, impulsive, balanced, beautiful, endearing, realistic, and also mythical. A love story made of golden miniatures, silver etchings, and the clay of tales, made of letters and words. I collect my thoughts and rummage through the corners of my memory for the remains of tales, for the ends of words and scraps of stories. You may like them or you may not. They might stream forth, flow, pour down, and multiply, sweeping away anything in their path like a flood, hatching like yeast into thousands of beings. From the eye of the mirror, you are insistent, calling again. You want me to tell you the story of Shahrazad, who rocks the sad king on her knees as she sings him tales from Wonderland. Yet you know that I am not Shahrazad, and that one of the world's greatest wonders is that I am unable to enter my country or pass through the regions around it. Do not be surprised. Let us count them country by country. Strange.
Absolutely beautiful.
Strange as your request to me and my promise to you. I made that promise to tell you a love story without realizing what it would cost me.
Absolutely beautiful, Liana. So
Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Thank you. Tell
Thanks.
us about your life, about your work, about occupation, about your beloved Palestine. Talk to us.
Yes, I was born in Jerusalem, but I was obliged to be an immigrant because for 1967, there were the occupation for part of Palestine. You know, in the original Palestine, historical Palestine, it was for everybody. Everybody can live there. But with this, Zionism, the racist ideology, they came first and took half of the country. Another war, 1967, another part. Now they are making annexation for the West Bank, which means that we will live in small Bantustans and we will be besieged all the time. You know, I'm in my house in Ramallah, but I can't go to Jerusalem. I'm not accepted to go. I don't have any permission to live in Jerusalem with my family. So I don't see them. Sometimes we can talk on the internet or something like that. Although it is just 15 kilometers between Ramallah and Jerusalem. We are this kind of closure. It makes another kind of closure on your mind. People here all the time, they are thinking about small things, how to go from the checkpoints, how to go through the wall, the Israeli big racist wall, how to find a way to go to another city. I was raised in Jericho because my father was a doctor and he has a clinic there. And I was obliged to be out of the country 26 years. Till after the Oslo agreement, I could get back. And now again, I found that in Ramallah, it is the same as if I'm living abroad because I couldn't go to Jericho. All the time there is the the settlements. They can humiliate people. They can use the weapons. They can hit you. They can make anything. So we are slaves. We are the slaves of the 20th and 21st century, the Palestinian. And we have the same problem
like in South Africa before about the land. Now we don't have land. All the time they come and confiscate everything and bringing more settlers, gathering them from all over the world and bringing them to take our land just because of their religion, because they are Jews and we are not Jews. So it's another kind of racism to be this differentiation if you are in this religion or you are not. And I think that we are the longest colonization, the Zionist Israeli. It is the longest, colonization because it lasted now since 1948 till now, 72 years. For me as a writer, I was working as a journalist. Why I was outside this country? Because by chance, any Palestinian who were not in his home, it wasn't allowed for him to get back. They took us from all the country, and thousands and tens of thousands were abroad. So we were with the all that kind of the liberation, Palestinian movement, resistance to liberate Palestine. So at that time, we spent 27 years, all the time living in camps inside the Arabic countries. And we have a lot of massacres like Sabra and Shatila. And in this novel, I read some parts of it. I made it about the massacres of Tal al-Za'atar in Lebanon, not just because of the same place. I want to raise the memory, because if we live massacres and we are silent all the time. And for me, I try to write the Palestinian history through the eyes of women. All the time we have this problem because nobody thinks about us, nobody looks for us. We are marginalized all the time. So the only way is for me to resist this, not just the colonization outside, not just the Israeli occupation and the annexation now, which is going on now in West Bank, also to write on the voice of women. Also, this is the same part of the story.
Thank you, Liana, which is absolutely important. And now we come to Jitendra. Jitendra, I think as we talk about women's struggles, about for all of us as people being colonized in different ways, and you are in India, but I'm really excited about what you are doing now for the children across the world. And I like the idea of the South collaborations and how the South is now helping in a way to bring a new vision, and that you have located that with children. Please tell us about this amazing project.
Yeah.
Yes, Jitendra.
Justin. Yeah,
yes.
Actually, I believe in creating opportunities for all, including myself. When I talk all, that means myself. I have never forgotten the history, but I always take it as a torch to my future. What can be the future? Looking into this dreadful situation of COVID-19, we several friends from across the globe, we started an online campaign. We named it One World Children. All the children are one across the globe, so as we are one. So it's an open platform, and it's like it's for everybody, but specifically it's for young audience, actually to engage them, educate them, entertain them, and empower them while they are struggling with this dreadful situation of COVID-19. So the beautiful part is we have partners and supporters from all over the world, and this is a living illustration. This is an example that we are one, and it's like few of you said, colonization is inside our mind. So we have partners from Africa, India, Asia, but we have more partners from Europe and USA, also Latin America. We have the strongest partner from Europe, many countries from Europe, and they have been supporting us. So it's all about time, and it's all about the mindset of the generation. So our slogan is, together we are stronger, together we achieve more, together we all win, and together we can bring the change. So we have been doing this interactive session online for young audience across the globe. It's a global campaign. We started 2 months back, and every weekend we host interactive workshop for children. And in last 2 months, means 8 weeks, we have already reached out to more than 50,000 young audience from across the globe. And most of the audience, they are actually from Europe and India. So that means we are creating opportunity for European children. We are creating opportunities for across the children and youth from across the globe. So it's all about, I think, creating opportunity for ourselves and strong. Like I always say, if you bury a seed, it will grow as a tree. And even like the diamonds are made inside, from the coal, and lotus, they are from the mud. So I believe in I have some positive perspective. So I believe in ourselves, maybe.
Thank you, Jitendra. I think it's also important because we are members of CIFEJ, which is the International Center of Films for Children and Young People. And I'm really excited that the South-South collaboration, and that, yes, you are now showing a different world, because Brittany, you were talking about the media and how the media influences us as young and for our children. And with these films and these workshops, we're managing to cross over those barriers. So thank you so much, Jitendra. And now we'd like to come to you, Jason. Before we come to Jason, Justine, do we have something to show?
The highest award given to British officials who work abroad is the Order of St. Michael and St. George. This consists of a star with a little enameled painting. And the painting shows the angel, St. Michael, standing on the neck of the devil. The devil, the black man. This image is very similar to one that we've become familiar with. A policeman kneeling on George Floyd's neck as he says, "I can't breathe." And the idea of standing or kneeling on the neck of a black man is deeply embedded in these notions of dominance of white people over black people, the dominance of Western nations over other countries. Now, one of the recipients of this award was a man called Sir Evelyn Baring. Sir Evelyn Baring was the grandfather of someone called Mary Wakefield. Mary Wakefield is the wife of Dominic Cummings, Boris Johnson's chief advisor. A man who has done more to cover up the record of current events than anyone else in this government. Sir Evelyn Baring was governor of Kenya when Kenya was a colonial possession of the United Kingdoms. And while he was there in the 1950s, he instituted a system of concentration camps, which even his own Attorney General compared to those run by the Nazis. He drove into these concentration camps and fortified villages. Almost the entire population of the Kikuyu people, then numbering over 1 million people. Huge numbers died, some of them of starvation and disease. Many beaten to death, burnt to death, tortured to death. Repeatedly, men were castrated. In some camps, almost the entire population of children died.
And until the Mau Mau are destroyed, the innocent too must suffer.
So Jason, we come to you with that very heavy introduction. Please talk to us about the work that you do. Talk about, I know, within academia, issues around decolonization, racism, are strife. I mean, it's really something that you're probably working on, but experiencing as well. So please share with us. I think you're on mute, Jason.
Yep. So sorry. For those first, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on your show, and it's so amazing to be with these fantastic activists. And good evening to everyone that's viewing this community, so to speak. A lot of the work I do is based on this area, and I kind of always preface these things by saying, in a perfect world, there's nothing personally enjoyable about doing this kind of research, because things would be fair and we'd live in an egalitarian society where nobody is, no one sort of suffers any kind of intersectional inequality. And a lot of my work is really about challenging, I guess, the idea of intersectional equality, particularly race. And if we think about the academy and what it resembles, it is an instrument of whiteness, through its canons of knowledge, through the people that gatekeep knowledge, how we kind of consider all of these kind of contexts. And I think that's kind of a really significant thing. And I suppose one of the things that I'm working on at the moment is that a lot of my work has been around mental health, race, social justice, and cultural studies. And currently I'm writing a book, which I wrote 2 books. So I wrote a book based on the impact of the 1990s. So in Britain, the Cool Britannia years was a period where, white people found a lot of kind of engagement with popular culture, music, the arts, sport. And during the 90s in Britain, that was a really fractious time for ethnic minority people, really hallmarked by, 3 specific events. The murder of Stephen Lawrence, the racially charged murder of Stephen Lawrence in 1993, the induction of New Labour in 1997, and in 1999, the offering of the Macpherson Report, which offered to the UK that the UK was institutionally racist, something that people of colour, Black people in the UK had known for decades. And I suppose if we kind of think of a more broader context outside of the UK, the work I'm currently doing now really focuses on, I guess, how colonialism acts as a commercialization of Black culture and how it kind of extrapolates minerals. And I think one of my favorite lyrics, which kind of creates the premise for what I'm going to be writing about, is these are the days of miracle and wonder, this is the long distance call. And that is from The Boy in the Bubble by Paul Simon. And I suppose the eternal argument 34 years on was that an exploitation of some of South Africa's most beloved and oppressed musicians at the time, specifically Hugh Masekela, Miriam Makeba, Ladysmith Blackman Barzo, Petiti Kamalo, Stamela, and Brenda Fassie? Was that an exploitation of those politicized individuals, because they themselves did not have freedom in South Africa, yet you have this musician who, in many respects, completely disregarded the cultural boycott, but may make the argument that actually, I wanted an amalgamation with this culture. And what I want to kind of discern is that, was there an exploitation of minerals there? Or for those musicians, was that the gift that kept giving, in terms of, did it create this panacea for the rest of the world to kind of see and embrace South African culture? I suppose the aspect that comes of it, which kind of really aligns with colonization, is the idea of exploitation. There's always an undercurrent. When we talk about colonization and decolonizing, there's always an aspect of it, an exploiting of minerals, of Black culture, which for me, I'm really interested in, and really thinking about how we can unpack that in more critical ways that decenters whiteness from that phenomena. Because I think whiteness still occupies that phenomena, and actually it's about decentering it from that and thinking about the tools that have been used to extrapolate Black heritage, Black culture, suppress Black people as an act of, not only physical violence, but verbal violence, visceral violence in all its kind of covert manifestations. And I think judging those particular contours really sets a fantastic point of departure for how we might reconceptualize what a truly inclusive society may look like, and actually what can Black individuals achieve when the shackles of kind of decolonisation are removed from them. And I'm kind of really intrigued to hear more from the audience and from the panelists. So I think I'll leave it there.
So much. We have now our UB40 clip that we'd like to show before we get into a response from each of you. Please think about whatever you'd like to say or last comments.
Here are matters that we must account for. Bloody deeds have been done in my name. Criminal acts I must pay, and our children will shoulder the blame. I'm a British subject, not proud of it, while I carry the burden of shame. I'm a British subject, not proud of it, while I carry the burden of shame. As a nation we're following blind, no one stops to question why. Our mind is supporting an arm, and a boy is a way to die. I'm a British subject, not proud of it, while I carry the burden of shame. I'm a British subject, not proud of it, while I carry the burden of shame.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Justine. So that is UB40, and I think some of you might know what UB40 stands for, right? Jason? You're muted.
It's a tax code in the UK for the dole, I believe.
Yes, it is. And so they have signing off because that was when they started to perform as a group, and they didn't need to be collecting dole anymore.
Yeah.
So Seko, I like that line coming back to you, that a boy in Soweto dies. And the fact that with this kind of colonization, you know, just how far that web spreads. So go ahead.
Thanks, Fido. I just want to, there are a couple of comments that I want to make, but I'll be as brief as possible. I was exceptionally moved by Brittany's line where she talks about this idea of a God that looks like me. And I think that is so powerful, and that is so useful on so many levels. And the reason why I say this is useful is because of Jason's comments right at the end, where he asks the question of cultural commodification and the music, and how it is that you know, Black artists might have been exploited for their artwork. And I think, Jason, in some instances, we might read it in that way. But for instance, there's a paper that I've got coming out with Imbizo here in South Africa titled Kauleza, an instantiation of the Black archive. And I trace how it is that Black women, Black female artists, right, Black musicians, Miriam Makeba, Letambulu, Busim Mhlongo, were doing really, really interesting work about theorizing Black women's experiences through the music, right? And if you go back to that incredible interview that was given by Miriam Makeba in 1988, when she released that album of hers, Sangoma, she said something that is quite poignant. She talks about the ways in which in the South African context, music was always used as a mode of inspiring resistance, as a mode of continuing the culture, as a mode of preserving language, right? And she talks even to the idea of the music that was inciting resistance from the communities that was sung in isiXhosa, in isiZulu, and the Afrikaners and the English couldn't hear that music, and yet there was conscientization that was happening through the music. You see what I mean? So there's something to be said about, for me in any case, about how it is, because of the exclusion, specifically in South Africa, we were excluded outside of the higher education space. Theorization of the fact of Blackness continued to happen in the artworks of Gerard Sekoto, in the music of Miriam Makeba and Letambulu, in the poetry of incredible poets such as William Wellington Kopa and S.K. Mkai, which could be read as commodification, but in many instances is what we're drawing on as this generation in terms of reclaiming particular identities and reconstituting the fragments that were left by the violences and the trauma of all of these incredibly historically violent encounters with whiteness, if I can put it like that.
And Carlos, you know, when we had the conversation, Carlos, you were talking about Black feminism, which has become quite important within the Brazilian conversation.
Yes, we were talking about that, and it's important now in the whole context of the Brazilian Black movement and struggle. Hearing all I realize that it's very interesting that we have so many points, so many problems in common. No? I was thinking here as Brazilian, the problem of the spatial segregation. In Brazil is very clear, the whites, they tend to live in certain points of the city, the Black population in another point of the city, of course. Then we have a series of intersections, and then is when the problem of women and feminism happens, is that the different intersections we see here is exactly the ones that domination and oppression, we have to fight it in different levels. One, of course, is race. The problem if you are white, if you are brown, if you are indigenous, if you are Black. And then there is the other problem that it's gender. No, it's not only gender, but sexual orientation. It's not all the same. No, it's not all the same that we have to address this kind of questions. And at last but not least is the problem of social class. Because in Brazil is very, very common, you hear, Brazil is not a racist country. The problem here is not race, is social class. You are not mistreated because you are Black. You are mistreated because you are poor. But coincidentally, the poorest people in Brazil are Black or indigenous. And then we have to discuss all this, at least these three different levels, no? That is race, gender, and social class.
Yes, Jason.
Guys, thank you. I appreciate it. I just wanted to, Carlos, what you said is absolutely brilliant, because that's what I was talking about in terms of that intersectional inequality. And often in terms of particularly social class, that is used in the UK as an argument to neutralize discussions around race very often. So, you know, when we talk about this idea of Black Lives Matter in the UK, actually the rhetoric is actually all lives matter, and the issue is more around class. But again, it's kind of, you know, it's not kind of stacking, but, you know, for the individual that, you know, ticks all the boxes on those intersections in terms of inequality, and then you add an intersection like race onto that, or potentially sexuality or gender or disability or religion or class, it's completely compounds that kind of experience. And I suppose what is interesting from a UK perspective is that the experiences of Black women are completely different to that of Black men. And actually, in many cases, there are instances of Black men actually oppressing Black women within that kind of intersectional structure. So I think there are so many kind of nuances and factors within that that it's really important for us to unpack. And I do think, you know, for part of my research, for example, a lot of it's about reflexivity and challenging my own positionality and my own privilege as a Black man, and how that actually may oppress or may kind of enact male patriarchy in various violent forms. So I think that kind of continual reflexivity that you're kind of talking of, and positionality, I think is so central to this, because I think, you know, in terms of what we're looking at now, we're really looking at new conceptualizations of white allyship. What does that actually look like? You know, are we going to move from a season approach to a seasonal approach? Are we going to move from, you know, people really thinking about what privilege looks like? Do we look at privilege on this Richter scale in terms of, you know, what amounts to a lot of privilege and what doesn't? And I think it's going to be really interesting times for all of us in terms of what it actually looks like to give up privilege, you know, myself included, might I add. So I think it's really interesting. I just think the class argument in the UK it's similar to Brazil. It's the one thing that, you know, we're almost looking for that communal experience of inequality, and everyone kind of wants to feel like they're a part of that inequality, and class is the kind of de facto instrument that we use to kind of homogenize everyone's experiences of inequity.
Jitendra, you wanted to say something? Jitendra?
Yeah, it's like I think this class issue is everywhere. It's in our own society, because I have experienced it myself in my own life, because I born and brought up in a small, you can say, village in the eastern part of India, and we didn't have much opportunities. So I shifted to New Delhi, which is almost 2,000 kilometers. And when I came here, like I used to be treated like refugee here because of my language, because I came from a very small place, and maybe because of my accent or whatever. But most of the people, they treated me like I am outside my own country. But I sustained because maybe because of the positive attitude, and also there are also people, a certain community, they welcome you. So our society is definitely divided into two parts, you know, language wise, you know, financial status wise, and also mindset wise. So everybody is not thinking like that, because if I see now, like Indian people, they are a kind of leading the world. Like if I name the top 10 CEOs of biggest company like Google or Microsoft or Adobe or MasterCard, all the CEOs are Indian today. So it's like, it's all about like mindset, I think, and different kind of people are everywhere. We just have to you know, be positive. So my like I'm a different person, you know, Firdaus. So that's my point of view.
Yes, no, and that is so important, which is why if you look at the mix of people here, is that each of you have so much to share and offer, both in terms of your academic world, but also your creativity, and therefore where you're at and how you are ready to make that shift. Whether we're questioning it, whether we're experiencing it, whether we're changing it, I think that's happening. Brittany, I want to put you on the spot because I don't know if you have another amazing poem hidden somewhere that you could share with us. Is there something?
I do.
Yes,
yes, I do. It's called Choose Your Side. Okay. So you turn on us because the virus can kick us out on our ass because we came to y'all defense. No, you might not want to hear what I have to say, but today, allow my words to clear all the pretense. After many conversations in the safety of my home, I realized that I am blessed but stressed because across the seas, my sis and bros who look like me are out on the streets in distress. Come on now, don't ask me why. You know, same story, because the color of our skin. Let's not pretend. Let's keep it real. Matter of fact, let's keep it true. I say to hell with all these trends and distractions, keeping us acting as if we not lacking vital resources while they stacking and mapping out vacations on yachts while we are punching in clocks being essential. Let's keep it simple. We are risking our lives to feed ourselves and strive to keep our heads up, stay Black, survive. But they are making it hard, so I call out to God, bring the rod, strike them back for the compassion that they lack. In fact, I'm to the wire, my limit, the wall. I'm done pretending that they God while they create formulations, calculating my demise. I can see it in their eyes as they smile and try to test my intellect as they try and inject their solutions in the veins of true wealth. African youth, African women, African men, they are trying to cut us at the root so they can win the land. Choose your side. Freedom is where I'm headed to. Study time. Prepare for what you are about to go through. Use this time. Perfect what God gave you. Choose your side.
Oh my.
Thank you.
That is so beautiful. Liana, I'm coming to you. I would like you to share with us, Liana, your thoughts, your last thoughts.
Yes, I want to say something about Google and Facebook. They took out Palestine from all the maps. So now if I'm in Ramallah, every time I want to to write about my place or from where I'm writing, you can read the names of the settlements. We are the original people, and we try to have 2 states. They don't allow us to have it, or 1 state, even like South Africa. So they are treating us like a small people, the original people, who they can be vanished. And at the same time, all these difficulties make it more difficult for women. We have something called the honor crimes here, that any man can kill any woman in his family just with 6 months in the jail, because it's something called the honor crimes. So we had a lot to suffer, and that's why we are belonging to all the battles like Black Lives Matter, like South African justice to have the lands and to have good life for everybody there. We are part of the world, and we feel with all our hearts what is going on around. And I think that it's not just pieces of battles. It's a big battle for all of us on the same human rules we like to have or to apply to our life. And you know, everybody can try by his way. For me as a writer, I'm trying to write novels to go inside politics through love and through stories and through all these things we know, all of us as human beings. That's it.
Yes. And we feel you, and we feel that struggle, which is very, very deep. And as you say, for a very, very long time. Justine, do we have the slide of Frantz Fanon? We just wanted to have one of his quotes. And I'm sharing this for you, Carlos, because I know you said that you will be doing this soon.
Yes.
And as we come to the end of our discussion today, I want to thank you all for sharing with us your ideas, your thoughts, the generosity of your spirit. I want us to think about COVID and what that means in one word. You know, every time we start the F show, we say F means something. So I say F means freedom. What is F for you, Carlos? I think you're on mute.
For me, it's friendship.
Friendship. Liana.
Solidarity.
F.
Solidarity.
But you have to give me a word with F.
Okay. In this case, I can't remember now with F.
Okay. We give you 1 second. We go to Jason. Jason, F is for?
I agree with Carlos, friendship. I think that's really important.
Friendship. Jitendra.
Family. The whole world is my family.
Brittany.
I'll say faith.
Faith. Siseko.
Fraternity.
Fraternity. Liana. F is for fabulous. For you are fabulous.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very
I
much.
want to thank you all for your time. Thank you for being with us. Have a good day further. Those of you who still, your day has just started. And for those of us whose day is coming to an end. And Jitendra, thank you for being with us. We know that you are 6 hours ahead. Thank you very
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for those. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.